People must remember that you are not God. You're only human.
Streaming this Friday on Netflix, a new film much anticipated among people of faith, The Two Popes, follows a fictional relationship between soon-to-be retired Pope Benedict and soon-to-be succeeding Pope Francis. Though the film has garnered 4 Golden Globe nominations, some Catholic critics were torn. Joining me to talk about the movie is David DeSerto, Director of Programming at the Sheen Center for Thought and Culture and co-host of Net TV's Real Faith. Welcome, David. And first and foremost, have you had a chance to see the movie, and what's your take?
I did see it, and let's start off with the positives, because there are some things to admire about the film, underline some. It's, you know, watching these two great actors, it's a masterclass in acting at the top of their game, and visually it's very impressive, particularly the way that they've recreated the Sistine Chapel, which is the backdrop against where much of this conversation takes place.
All right, now the film was inspired by true events, but the relationship is fictionalized. So let's take a moment to listen to the filmmaker's thoughts on that.
The whole film's a fiction, because, but a fiction really based on very good and solid research and on facts. Everything they say on the film was taken from books or from interviews or from sermons that they have said at some point. So all their lines, they really said.
I do know that I have lots of friends who are lapsed Catholics who came to a screening with me in London and were confused by it because they found they were in tears at the end of it. And it made them think about everything they'd left and why would I be drawn back to the church?
So do you think this movie is Catholic friendly?
It really depends how you define that. I mean, some Catholic critics have said at least it does take Catholicism seriously, which it does. But I think the main contention is, yes, it's not a documentary. And since films began, there's been this creative tension between dramatic license and historical accuracy. Sometimes to create a narrative film, you have to play a little loose with the facts. But I think it comes down to, does a filmmaker really respect the integrity of the person they're depicting? And I think in this case, the answer is no. I would take some issue with what he's saying about every line in the film being based out of book. I have a real problem with that statement.
Okay, well, both of the actors, Jonathan Pryce and Anthony Hopkins, have received nominations for their performances as portraying both of the popes. But some say the movie doesn't accurately portray the two popes. And do you agree with that?
Well, you know, it's funny. The filmmaker said that it was very well researched. I think the film actually contradicts some of the research. Anthony McCartan, who wrote the screenplay, had actually written a book called The Two Popes, which a lot of this information came out of. And one of the chapters in that book is called The Reluctant Pope, referring to Pope Benedict, whereas in this film, he's shown to almost be campaigning for the papacy. So it contradicts himself there. It also plays into those caricatures that sort of presents them as foils and you know, theological adversaries, where I don't think either Pope, Pope Emeritus Benedict or our current Holy Father would really agree with that. But most important, I think, not only does it perpetuate the idea of the genial Francis versus the stodgy Benedict. Benedict only wanted really a life of academics and writing. And the idea that the Pope, who really kept it very close to the vest, I think he may have only told his brother that he was planning on stepping down, the idea that he would share that with Bishop Bergoglio and essentially name his successor, tap his own successor, is completely off the reservation.
All right, well, do you recommend people watch this movie?
You know, my co-host and colleague Stephen Gradanis said, quoting another film critic, said, you know, often the more you know about a subject, the less you find films about that subject appealing. So I think Catholics who really know about the church will not find this very compelling, which is sad because a lot of people who don't know about the church are going to take this movie kind of as
fact.
I will just, you know, sum everything up with Stephen's review, had the subtitle, Papal Bull.
I love it. David DeSerto, co-host of Real Faith, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
If you're watching Currents News on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and then click on the bell to get instant updates about all of our newest content, because we are putting your faith in the news.